I already introduced myself. This is Hirata. I am a playwright and also a director. I am also a professor at the Center for the Study of Co-Design, Osaka University. And Osaka University compared to Kyoto University, especially focused on science and technology, especially numerical science. But Communication Design Center was established 10 years ago at the Osaka University. And the Kyoto University and University of Tokyo, they are promoting accountability for scientists. And the various organizations were established around that time. But the uniqueness about Osaka University, like designers or dancing producers and also stage directors were invited to our university. And then by involving us, they tried to train the communication capability of students. And around that time, the president said that this must be a must. This must be a compulsory program for whom going up to the graduate school. So maybe in several years, students must first engage in the acting and to become a medical doctor in the future. And let me introduce what I do. In 2002, at the time of the World Cup, the Japan and Korea came up with this play. So this is Kazuyamita, this is Baek Song. So this is 5 actors and actresses from Japan and Korea. So this is a joint play of the two countries. And this is what is called Tokyo Note. This has been already translated into 13 languages. I wrote this story, and this is a play by a Japanese and Korean actors and actress. And this is a play in France. So French and actors and actress play for my screenwrite. And this is the Japan, France, and Iraq, the joint project for this play. So I engaged in various international projects. And at the Osaka University, together with Professor Hiroshi Shiguro, he is a very famous robotic professor. And then there's a quite extreme professor at Osaka University, and he developed this android. So this is a play between robot and human being. This has been already played all around the world. And last year in Hamburg, Germany, at the opera theater, and this opera features Fukushima, the nuclear plant accident, and this is from the last scene of this opera. At the same time, I am involved in developing textbook for elementary school and junior high schools. So I provide some classes, and this is at the Gosho Minami Junior High School. So I provide some communication training programs to the elementary school and junior high school students. At the same time, I am involved in the art management and cultural creation. And usually when I talk to the student at the university, I explain different roles of arts. The first one is the original roles of the arts. For example, people are refreshed by listening to the music, or by looking at the paint, they find a peace of mind, or they may feel energized after looking at the dramas. So those are the direct impact by the arts. At the time of the East Japan earthquake, many artists went to disaster hit areas. So AKB and EXILE, so those music groups, they are of course welcome by local people, but the traditional songs or classic music play the most important role in order to provide some peace of mind in the disaster hit area. And also in Tokyo and Kanto areas, after this great disaster, people held off on providing some artistic works. But once we stop providing artistic works, how can people be consoled? So by looking at paint drawn like several hundred years ago, we find peace of mind. Or by looking at Greek drama that was written thousands of years ago, we feel refreshing. So this is a role of art. This is the original role of arts, I believe. And the opera, the major roles played by a solist, and American and also Denmark and Japanese soloists joined in this play, and this was directed by myself, and also the story is written by myself, and also Nagano Kento, the Japanese American who provided music, and also the lighting was provided by French artist, and this was played in Germany. So this opera, but given money by German taxpayers' money, but there are no German artists involved. So art is universal values. So by keep continuing some arts which carries universal value, we are able to provide values and asset to human being. So this is one of our function as an artist. And also my main topic is about community formation as well as maintenance of communication. So I find the important role of arts in forming communication, maintaining communication. Later, the anthropologist, Professor Nakazawa, will speak to us. But when I speak with the anthropologist, in our history, there are always some kind of artworks like dancing or dramas. And today I am invited to the Kyoto University, and I am speaking just in front of Professor Yamagiwa. And as you know, Professor Yamagiwa is specialized in the gorilla. What is the difference between human beings and gorillas? What I can say is that human being belongs to two different groups. One group is family, and also human beings belongs to the community as well. So gorilla, chimpanzee, they belong either to a family or a herd or a community. But human beings can go between different groups. One is family, the other one is a community. So, for example, if a father went for hunting, caught something, then this father needs to communicate what he caught, and also the mother needs to communicate their family members. So this is the origin of the communication. Then there is some person who is very good at communicating, who are able to explain very well about the play they caught. So there was a great and big mammals, for example. Or maybe this person who is good at communicating can express in different way by using, facial expression or verbal expression and communication, different forms of communications. So this is how the communication capability develop in human beings. At the time of East Japan earthquake, there is one of the hardest hit area on Onagawa-cho. And then this town suffered from the maximum 40-meter high tsunami. 8% of the population died because of this tsunami. And most of the township was washed out by the tsunami. And in these areas, they find a difficulty to come up with agreement among people in community to relocate to a higher ground. And this town is very famous for the lion dance. This is a traditional Japanese dance, but all the costumes and masks of this lion dance are also washed away by tsunami. But due to donations and helps, and those from other prefectures, they were able to restore the lion dance. Lion dance is the usually spring dance, but the spring dance was cancelled out because of tsunami. But the community which restore lion dancing first, they were able to find an agreement among community to relocate entire community to a higher ground. So this is quite interesting. So by discussing how to restore their lion dance festival, they were united and they found it easy to come out to a conclusion, an agreement to relocate whole community to the higher ground. But before that, this town suffered from depopulation, and several tens years ago, that their lion dance traditional festival was already at the risk of disappearance. And in the past, the lion dance was only open for men, but they opened up this traditional dancing to women as well. And they involved the foreign language teachers into this festival as well. And then decided to make this lion dance festival a mandate for all elementary school children as well. And so they have different costume and mask, and there are different flutes, and as well as the drums. And this lion dance is just a part of the elementary school education. And because of this, they were able to restore this traditional festival. And through this, they were able to unite the community once again. So they made a very fast decision to relocate to a higher ground. So this is another role of arts. So when it comes to the arts, you may sometimes need to rely on taxpayers' money. Therefore, this must be valuable for the education, tourism, or economy, or welfare and medical. For example, in Kagawa Prefecture, the one arts representing over 10 billion yen in economic value. And when it comes to the welfare and medical, how can art be beneficial for welfare and medical? Nowadays, those performing arts is used for the treatment of demented people. This is called the dramatic emotional therapies. So dementia is caused due to the compromised the neocortical area, but the cerebral limbic system, this is an emotion area of the brain. And once there's one compromised area in the brain, other part of the brain try to compensate, meaning that this cerebral limbic system is rather activated because of compromised neocortex. And sometimes actors and actresses go to a hospital, or those who are involved in the caregiving, they train as an actors or actresses. For in the past, if your grandmother who has a dementia say that you stole my money, then you would say, no, I didn't. You must be mistaken. This is not a good way to respond to a person with dementia. If your grandmother said, I lost my money, then you can say, oh, did you? Well, let's try find it. And you just try find lost money together with grandmother for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. After 10 or 15 minutes, she get tired. And then, oh, now we are a bit tired, so let's have a tea. Then, just having a cup of tea, at the time of that, then enjoying tea, your grandmother already forget about losing money. So this is how those dramatic emotional therapy works. So together with people with dementia, those actors and actresses experience together with those people with dementia, so they just resonate whatever they say. Because of this therapy, that drug dosage was reduced by half or one-third. And most of the drugs which are used for dementia, those are tranquilizers. So after this therapy, the drug intake was reduced by half or by one-third. And this is an emotional satisfaction index of different dance therapies. And contemporary dance, as well as dramas, those are very effective for treating dementia. And when it comes to the contemporary dance, if you are not dementia people, you try to understand what this dance means. So you try to use the logic, rationale to understand the contemporary dance. But the people with dementia, they don't try to interpret it using logic. They simply respond it. And this is very good for the recovery of their cognitive power. And Nagi town, as being already introduced in the beginning, this is located in Okayama Prefecture. And next to this town, Tsuyama City, with a population of 100,000, but the Nagicho town is populated with only about 6,000 people. And since last year, I am involved in educational cultural activities at this town, and they decided to incorporate the drama playing for the recruitment of the local officials. And this is one question for their entry exam. So those who wish to come to work at this town, they are tasked to discuss this question. So this is a question. In 2020 in Tokyo Olympic, you are going to host a country for some athletic competition areas. So from which country, for which competition would you like to host? And so this is a question. And for this discussion, they start to discuss. So by having this discussion, they show their communication skill. So sometimes people make a joke in this discussion, but this is about how they are able to activate their communication. And also, they decided to incorporate young female officers as well into this discussion. So the concept of this reform is that they wanted to identify people with good communication abilities. And Nagicho population is only 6,000 people, and this local government, there's only 80 people. So there's only 80 people, that's why they need to do everything. When there's a heavy snow, they need to remove snow. If there's any person who is who has a dementia need help, they need to help. Therefore, they need to be engaged in various activities. In Tokyo metropolitan areas, there are about 160,000 people. So if you have such resources, you are able to pick a best person for different job. But in this town, there's only 80 people. Therefore, they need to be involved in various works. So those who are good at regular testing and simply good at testing is not a good candidate. They must be part of a community. They must be a good communicators. Therefore, they changed dramatically way to recruit local town officers. And this is quite important, I believe. So, as I said, in the dramatic emotional therapy, the Dr. Fuji of Tohoku University promoted this therapy, new therapy, because of his strong beliefs. Currently, the dementia testing, there are they do like 30 questions of the arithmetic questions, and if you miss like a 3 out of 30, then you are this level of dementia and as such. But for example, the arithmetic question like the 100 minus 13, is it important for people with dementia? Well, we at elementary school, we try to memorize multiplication table. So this is of course important to have the functioning society. But once you get old, the having good arithmetic capability is not so important.
Or in Nagi town, the one officer has to do the multiple tasks. But this is how the community worked in the past to operate the village. One people doing just one task for the rest of one's life. This is only true in the urban area because this is more efficient. We have lots of people. However, this kind of a model hit the limitation now. The modern urban concept hit to the wall. And for a small town, just trying to copy that is no longer tenable. We have to put the current system into question, and looking back the long history of the human life and a community and how the society was constituted, we need to take a look at that once again. Coming back to Nagi town. Nagi town has the situation-appropriate child rearing support and educational reform for many years. As a result of this, as I briefly mentioned, in this town, the total fertility rate is 2.81. This is the highest in Japan. The very remote island of Okinawa, the southernmost island of Japan, may have 2 or higher numbers, but this is phenomenal. But the next town to this, the Nagi, is Tsuyama. That is a big town. And the younger couples who are working in this bigger town would live in Nagi. We live in the urban area and we commute by train. So we have to choose the places to live by the train service. But in Tsuyama and in Nagi, because there is no public transportation, they need to drive. So when they have to decide to where to live, then they choose the town, focusing on the education and child rearing environment, especially when they are young. And comparing Tsuyama and Nagi, Nagi is much better in terms of the environment. There are the fees for the children are free of charge, and then the children have opportunities to learn kabuki and drums, and the schools are small, and so they can be looked after much better. So the young mother choose the Nagi instead of Tsuyama. In those in the 20s through 40s, especially female, if they like to live in that town can thrive. And so in this kind of small towns, surprisingly, there are cafes and good confectionery stores and restaurants for young mothers. And the Nagi town also opened the pizza restaurant, and also the bakery will be coming very soon, and also cafe. The young mothers would like to have a place to get together while their children are taken care of by the kindergarten. So this kind of environment is very important for them. The job already is out there, and then just having additional factory would not attract the young people. The environment of child rearing will be very important for the attraction. And the Nagi is doing in more than that. They have preserved children's kabuki, and today's performer is a kind of a quasi-professional child kabuki performer, but all the third graders in elementary school of the town have a chance and learn kabuki. And also, if they hope so, they can learn kabuki until they become the high school students. And there are two performers in the performance. Both of them are actually the city town officer. They are hired by the town, and then they are kabuki experts. That is their titles. On a daily basis, they do something other than kabuki, but during the season of kabuki, they focus their time on kabuki performance. And so there are the systems to offer the kabuki lessons for children. The children in Nagi are very interesting and funny. Typically, child would like to go to the play sports, and then when they go to the distant places for the matching, and then usually on the long drive, they start to trying to play some games. But the children in Nagi start to pretending to play kabuki or sing together the kabuki songs. This is the actual performance. Today we showed the performance digest. And not only that, in spite of the smallness of the town, just 6,000 people, they have the modern museum, art museum, designed by Arata Isogaki, and the kids will just have fun around in this premise. This was also designed by Arata Isozaki. This is a library with a splendid view. With this, Nagi is now involved in town building based upon nature and art. The performing arts and acting or theater. This is how we had created communities for millennium. And the same can be said for the communication education that I'm involved in. The communication education is a kind of fad and buzzword, but the young people are still retaining a good communication skills. There is no scientific proof that now the youngsters do not have the communication capabilities. When we ask experts, they would agree that now the young people's communication power is even better. But the old middle-aged people may be criticizing the young people about the young people's communication power. But let's think about dance as a way of communication. Dancing is one of the very important communication tools, and many countries such as Cuba, Brazil, and also Ryukyu in Japan, for them, the dance is the most important tools for communication. When we live in those communities, the Japanese middle-aged men are the worst because they don't have any the capability of dance. So there is more than one ways of the communication. There is no universal one size fits all kind of idea about the communication. And in the past, we had the environment that we can pass down this kind of skills. And make-believe play will be done by children. And once they hit the little older ages, they will participate in the village festival or traditional performing arts, and they come into contact with the seniors of the community. That was how the community was maintained. And in this area, Shodo Island or Awaji Island, there are folk-based kabuki still going on. And it was a kind of the necessary tool for youngsters to learn. Shiba Ryotaro has Nanohana no Oki. He is an author, and and the Kahe Takagaya in the book moved from Akita to Hokkaido in the story. He designed the vessel, boat. And in the conversation with the vessel carpenter, this person said that you are speaking in the words of Kyogen, because that the carpenter is from the family of the some kind of nobility. This means that in Edo period, when you talk with the people in other area, the warriors used the words of kyogen, and the merchants used the word of joruri, other traditional performing arts. So in Osaka and Kyoto and Awaji Island, or in the Shodo Island, an important ship transportation, joruri and kabuki became popular because it was a kind of must tools of communication and education for the merchants to have a good communication with the people in other areas. In society, there was this kind of a system. But after the war, this was wiped out most completely. Most of the community have lost this. And now the population is declining, families are shrinking, and the information technology advanced. The volume of communication between children and adults was lost. Kyoto University may have the similar problem, and I am in Osaka University. The science-based students, some of these students had no opportunity of talking with women other than their mothers. They find out when they hit the 20 years old, it may be too late. These children might have been okay in the past because they went to the graduate school just to become a professor, and then they may have the matched marriage, and then they will live a relatively happy life without causing any troubles. But today, in all of the laboratories, there are women students, there are international students. The professor cannot dismiss the women's or international students, so they cannot be educators. And the primary school and the middle school, I am involved in communications. And then the students who went to boys-only school for middle and high schools, they have a kind of problems after graduating high schools. And most of these children live in a hot house. And then they were raised by their very education-minded mothers. And starting at the university, they abruptly find out that they have to have a very good communication skills. This is why some of the children are stressed out. Some are very easygoing about the communications, but others will find it difficult. So this is not to blame the children. This is a responsibility of the adults. And the local town pop and mom stores. This is also a good place for the local people to have a good communication. But now we have convenience stores instead of the pop and mom stores. Only when you have money, you can buy something. You don't have to have any communication with the shop clerks. But as the world is globalized, the communication capability is actually more critical. But the environment the children that are raised, the communication is less important. So there is a huge gap between the two. To fill this gap, especially in the rural community, they have to have the good environment for children to nurture their communication skills. The communication education has to be nurtured by the town, reviving it, and it should be a part of the education or social systems. And when this becomes important, the activities I am involved in, the theater or drama education, there is a role that can be played by this. The theatrical art we enjoy today started from Athens in Greek some 25,000 years ago. And to coincide with that, philosophy was established. So both of them were born at the same around the same time. And what happened in Greek back then, the democratic system was generated. That democracy is a little bit different from the contemporary democracy, but for the first time human being had a democracy. The people in Athens might have been flabbergasted by that. Everybody should participate in decision making. And before that, the king made a decision, every decision for the sake of the people. But the folk people are different in their opinions. Then how can they decide things? Maybe the pushers will run through their decisions. And there are two wonderful things about these people in Greek. There are two ways of the communications and making decisions. That was the philosophy and also the theater. There are two different concepts, A and B, and then they had a discussion and they came to the new decision, C. They came up with this kind of skills. And the other way was the theater. For the people in Greek, participating in theater was the rights and also obligation. There was no elementary compulsory education, but there was a compulsory participation in the theater. They have to participate in the theatrical work, and they have to go onto the stage. That was a way to reconcile different sensibilities. And when I visit the elementary school for a course, I typically say at the end of the course, you cannot make a change of people. Those who like strawberries cannot be made to come to like melons. However, if you are presented the choice, and if you quarrel which is better, strawberry or melons, you cannot get either. So, for example, today you can eat strawberry, tomorrow melons, and then you can be friends with each other. You have to have some kind of negotiations to make a decision. That is the communication power. And to nurture this kind of skills, the performance and the theater is a very good tool. And as I said at the beginning, the theater education, due to various reasons, is eliminated from Japanese school education. But just only recently, the importance of the theater has been reviewed and re-understood. And through this kind of education, in the super global high school in Kyoto, which is one of the best schools in Kyoto, and they have a wonderful debate like organ transplant, for example. But once we have the theater workshop, girl students and boy students will not be mingled at all. And once after graduation, they may go to other countries and to start the conversation with the women in European countries. Are they going to debate about the organ transplant from the beginning? They don't know how to start the communication. In Japan, the biggest problem is the depopulation. So we have to have the youngsters who can have a very good relationship with other genders. In the rural area, the boys are rather silent and quiet. And then when they go to the urban area, they are at a loss how to communicate with the girls and the women. So we would like to have a good education about the communication and expression in schools. And the local community, which can do that, can find the birth rate going up. I hope that this kind of evidence will be accumulated nationwide. And then the communication education based upon theater will spread in Japan. And that is why I am involved in this kind of activities. Today I showed you the performance of Nagicho's children's kabuki to show that. Thank you very much.